Sometimes I almost feel like I'm just here to make the process of working on comic books more complicated than it really needs to be. Alright, what's going on, everybody? So, after my last video, I kind of got to thinking about just a random thing that I touched on, just to give people a heads up that's actually starting a comic and have either never done it before or never given this any thought. And that is whether or not to do your comic books in black and white or in color, which is currently the dilemma that I'm having to face because I don't know which one I necessarily want to roll with. At this point, I think I'm just going to do artwork for my comic and then color it and do it in black and white and see which one appeals to me more. This is sort of prolonging the process of me working on this comic, but I feel like it's a necessary one. And just to do a little bit of story time, I remember when I first made my comic Shadow Assassins, which was almost a decade ago at this point. I wanted it to look like a manga so bad, and the artwork was god awful, but I wanted it to look like a manga so bad. I remember doing those pages in black and white, and in hindsight, I don't know whether that was the greatest decision. Well, it probably wasn't, because I ended up later doing the comic in color, and it made my poor artwork look so much better at the time. And a lot of people will look at Shadow Assassins and feel like that the artwork looked fine. It didn't. Granted, you're gonna get better over time, but that just the way that comic looked bugged me, and that's because my actual drawing ability deteriorated in the process of me creating the story. I stopped drawing for almost a year, which is one of the biggest mistakes I think I've ever made. But that's a whole other conversation. But anyways, despite how bad the artwork was, it looked so much better once it was in color. And now I had the problem of my first chapter of my comic is in black and white, and every other chapter after that is in color, so it's kind of weird. But then here's the other thing. I have my comics for print. You can still get them to this day in my Indie Planet store. The link's in the description. Had to get that in there. But the black and white chapter 1 of Shadow Assassins is available for purchase, just like the other 3 chapters of the comic that I completed. But it's so much cheaper being in black and white than in color. And by so much cheaper, we're only talking maybe $2 more, but that actually means a lot, especially if you're doing any type of bulk printing or anything of that nature down the line. So I'm not saying that you should be making the decision about whether or not to make your comic in color or black and white solely because of how much it's going to cost you or how much it will cost your readers, because if they support you, if they're going to buy it, they'll buy it no matter what. But it's still something that you want to think about. I'm a cheapskate, so I'm always trying to figure out ways to save more money. But that almost sounds like a convincing argument for doing your comic in black and white, and it's still not. Here's the other dilemma I had. When I ended up converting my comic to webtoons, those black and white pages were hard to look at on a website. And also now, especially with Infinite Uppercut, I do my comics in ebook form as well as putting them out on print form at kablam.com. So I like the way it looks in color. And that's something else you also have to take into account is, are you going to have your comic on one of these webcomic platforms to view, or are you going to have an ebook form of your webcomic, in which, how do you want to look in that regard? Would it be better in black and white? Honestly, could you get away with doing your comic book in print in black and white and doing it in sort of webcomic format or ebook format in color? Would you even want to do that, or do you think that's ridiculous and too much extra steps? Too many extra steps, too much extra steps. What kind of a statement is that? Anyways, there's so many questions, even down to the little things when it comes to making a comic. But I feel like as webcomic creators, we need to ask ourselves these questions, especially if, we're looking at our comic books like it's a business, because unless we're doing this as a hobby or for fun, we kind of should be looking at it that way. And hell, even if you're doing it as a hobby, I still think that it doesn't hurt to figure out how you can make money off of it. But in any event, there's so many questions. And it's such a simple thing, like, do I do this in black and white or do I do this in color? And I know my biggest hang up, and I talked about this in a previous video, is just I want to make a manga or a comic, whatever you want to call it, because my style is going to be whatever the hell my style is at this point. But I want to make something that has that, I don't know, that black and white feel of reading an old school comic book like the ones I grew up on, or reading a manga for the very first time. But I also don't want the nostalgia of what I like to get in the way of making something that the readers of my work would actually enjoy. And I also don't want to get in the habit of, I make a comic, it's in black and white, I get bored with that and I eventually start doing it in color. Like, I don't want to do that at all. But I'm still in the early stages of working on this, and I don't know which direction I'm going to go in. And until I start doing the art in various forms to sort of look at, I'm not really going to know. Which leads me to what you're watching right now in the background, which is me still doing like world building stuff. And I'm trying to test different buildings and kind of environments to get a feel for what I'm necessarily going for. I'm not really set in stone on the environment that I created in this picture, that I also did in black and white for the record. But I don't know. I kind of want this comic to have, like, the characters have a look to them. The characters that I've made have a look to them, and I've gone and edited quite a few characters at this point. But I still want there to be an over-the-top nature to how my comic looks. And the one thing that's almost swaying me into doing my comic in color as opposed to black and white is I kind of want ridiculous colors in this comic. Like, I don't know, it would be hard for me at this point to make a comic in black and white considering how much color was in Infinite Uppercut. Like, that may be one of the most colorful things I've ever done in my life, considering most stuff I do is either on a black background or is dark in nature or something like that. Infinite Uppercut was bright. Very, very bright. Like, I'm currently all over the place with ideas and art direction for my new comic, which is what I enjoy about this process. Like, the weird problems and complicated nature of trying to figure out some of these things is, I don't know, there's a beauty in that in some weird way. And once you finally figure out what you're going to do and what road you're going to go down with your artwork and you start making it, it's even more exciting. I don't know, I'll see where this goes. As far as meeting my deadline as to the point to where I wanted to start making pages, which is July 1st, I don't even know how on track to getting to that date that I am. I know I'm closer than I was, but I still feel like I'm a ways away. But I don't want to worry about that too much as I just need to be getting things done. So, yeah, that's enough of me rambling for the day. But I just wanted to create food for thought for anybody that's thinking about whether or not to make their comic in black and white or in color. Just small little things that you want to keep in mind when making that decision. As well as, oh, by the way, you also want to get in the habit of thinking about, if you're doing it in color, differences between doing your comic in CMYK and doing it in RGB, which, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but I believe RGB are the colors that are used for online, and I think CMYK are the colors used for print. I hope that's not backwards, but yeah, those are also things that you want to take into account when making a comic too, because another issue I had with Infinite Uppercut is doing the comic in one color format and then posting them like online or in different ebook formats and stuff like that, and having to alter the colors because they've changed depending upon what monitor I'm looking at, what computer I'm looking at, whether or not it was done in CMYK or RGB. Yeah, those are things to take into account too. They may make a difference for you, then again they may not. Your art may actually look sound no matter, or they may look the way that you want it to look no matter what format you're doing it in. But I didn't have that such luck, and I had to do some finagling down the line that I could have avoided had I paid attention to that. So yeah, just like I said, figure out what you think is best for your style and you're gonna have to figure that out by experimenting. I honestly can't tell you any other way unless you're hell-bent on one over the other. But there's nothing wrong with just trying new things and seeing what necessarily works for you, or the story and art that you're trying to go for. So that's it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and let me know if you've been thinking about doing your comic books in black and white or in color, or if you have, what led you to the decisions you made with your artwork. I'd actually love to hear what you guys have done in the past or what your thoughts are, especially if it can give me some idea of where my head needs to be at with my own comic right about now, because I'm gonna think my way into a coma at this point. But in any event, like and subscribe if you haven't, and you all have a good one. And I'm out. If I can find out why there's a dog barking outside of my window. What in the hell is that? Like, the weather just started getting good. It's way too nice to start getting random already. It's April. Anyways, I'm out.